Magandang araw po sa lahat. This is a status report on imported and processed fruits and vegetables in the Philippines, presented to you by Group 5, composed of Amora, BALILI, BECIETE, and DASALLA. Here is Charles for the overview.
For the overview, we will talk about the foreign trade statistics for agricultural commodities in the Philippines. This table is from the Philippine Statistics Authority that tells us a summary of Philippine agricultural trade for 2020 and 2021. As you can see in the table, over the past 3 quarters, agricultural imports are higher than the country's agricultural exports. This tells us that there is a higher demand for agricultural products since more consumers seek healthier food options amid the pandemic, according to the United States Department of Agriculture. The country's total agricultural trade in the third quarter of 2021, which reached $5.93 billion, increased at an annual rate of 14.8%. In the second quarter of 2021, total agricultural trade posted an annual increment of 33.6%, while in the third quarter of 2020, trade recorded an increment of 0.4%. For the third quarter of 2021, processed and unprocessed fruits and vegetables amounted to $415.50 million, that shares 9.80% of the total $4,163.66 million total agricultural imports. For additional information about the status of imported goods, on November 10, 2021, the Philippine Bureau of Internal Revenue issued Revenue Memorandum Circular Number 112 of 2021, clarifying that all imported and processed fruits and vegetables are exempt from the 12% value-added tax. The VAT exemption includes fruits and vegetables that more recently gained market access, such as fresh blueberries. The circular also clarifies that BIR no longer requires the issuance of an authority to release imported goods prior to release from the custody of the Bureau of Customs.
Moving on to the specific status of the imported fruits, both unprocessed and processed. Presented on this slide are the top fresh fruit imports, and the shown numbers are the percentage change in value benchmarked against imported amounts between 2014 and 2021. So the top fresh fruit imports in our country includes number 1, apples, followed by mandarins, grapes, pears, oranges, lemons, of course, kiwi and strawberry. From the data gathered from different sources, it was observed that due to the COVID-19 pandemic, there was an increasing demand among Filipinos for vitamin C-rich fruits such as lemons. Also, there is a maintained importation of these fruits due to the demand during the holiday season as to follow the bountiful tradition, and during the dry season as consumers eat more fruit to refresh themselves and stay hydrated. From plain fruits, we move on to the top processed fruit imports to the Philippines, which includes apple juice, trail mix, which contains variation of nuts and dried berries. The third one is preserved cherries. Dried grapes, also known as raisins, and fruit preserves of raw materials not abundant in the Philippines. The fresh fruits and their processed forms are imported to our country by these top country importers as depicted on the world map shown on this slide. This slide shows the same list of importers with their corresponding exported products supplied to the Philippines. These importers are China, Australia, United States, Pakistan, Hong Kong, Argentina, New Zealand, Chile, and Japan. So that's it for fresh and processed fruit import status in the Philippines. Now I send you to Mary Rose for the status on imported vegetables.
Imported products for both processed and unprocessed vegetables. So here are the top 5 fresh vegetable imports in the Philippines. Number 1, potatoes for up to 5,773.7 metric ton in volume. Mushrooms for up to 639.8 metric ton in volume. broccoli for up to 397 metric ton in volume, lettuce for up to 174.5 metric ton in volume, and celery for up to 74.5 metric ton in volume. The vegetable target crops in the Philippines have had insignificant amounts of import volume through the years. This can be attributed to the large demand for the processed variety of vegetable products that local farmers are unable to supply. Moving on to the top processed vegetable imports in the Philippines, according to the Foreign Trade Statistics for Agricultural Commodities by the Philippine Statistics Authority. Vegetable fats and oils and their cleavage products like glycerol, crude, glycerol waters, and glycerolyze, as well as vegetable waxes, share almost 11.2% of imports in agricultural commodities, which valued at $323.51 million in the fourth quarter of 2017. It went up by 25% from the $258.75 million posted in the same period of 2016. The bulk of this product came mostly from Malaysia, with a share of almost 55% valued at $177.85 million. So the top 10 importing countries in the Philippines: United States, Vietnam, Australia, China, Malaysia, Indonesia, Ukraine, Thailand, Myanmar, and Brazil, with United States having the biggest imports in lettuce, potato, sweet potato, onions, cauliflower, and garlic. Ukraine for having the biggest imports in vegetable oils and other cleavage vegetable products, and Thailand for having biggest imports in fresh and processed vegetable products.
Protocols for importation of fruits and vegetables and other plants or plant products as issued by Bureau of Plant Industry, National Plant Quarantine Services Division. Plant risk analysis are technically known as PRA-ISPM number 11. This is an international standard for plant quarantine procedure that must be conducted by the importing country. The results thereof decides whether the commodity is allowed to be imported or not. The purpose is to assess the risk of these commodities to insect pests, plant diseases, and other plant-associated organisms. In addition to PRA are three legal applications, namely Plant Quarantine Service Certificate, Plant Quarantine Clearance, and Sanitary and Phytosanitary Import Clearance. It should be noted that both PRA and these applications are only applicable depending on the category of your commodity. Guidelines for categorization of commodities of plant origin. Category 1. These are commodities that are processed to the point that they do not remain capable of being infested with quarantine pests. Therefore, they are not regulated. Requirement PQSC. Category 2. These are commodities that remains capable of being infested with some quarantine pests. Intended use is for consumption or further processing. PRA may be required to get rid of the pests that are not eliminated during the process. Requirement PQC or SPISC. Category 3 are commodities that have not been processed and intended for consumption or processing. PRA is necessary. Requirement PQC or SPISC. The same as Category 3, Category 4 are not processed and intended for planting. PRA is also necessary. Requirement PQC or SPISC. For more information on the processes, additional requirements, and other guidelines of importation of plant and plant products to the Philippines, visit the official website of BPI and PQSD.
That is all for this status report. Maraming salamat po sa pakikinig.